Okay, thank you very much for coming. This is the final panel of the conference. Thank you very much for coming to the whole conference. It's been a wonderful couple of days, and this is it. This is the hot topic that a lot of people have been talking about over the last couple of years, really, and we've got one of the most esteemed panels with us right now. So they don't need any introduction, but just in case, I'm Dave, L. Hornet from Pendulum, Futurebound from Futurebound and Viper Recordings, D-Bridge, and DJ Markey. And we're here to discuss, yes. And we're going to discuss commercial and underground drum and bass, whether they can work together, how they work together. They share the same space at the moment. And I think first, what we need to kind of clarify really is an understanding of a concept of what is commercial and what is underground, because I think we all have slightly different versions on that. So we're just going to start from Paul here, from L. Hornet here, and just work our way through just what is like your kind of understanding of underground and commercial.
Can we start on that end?
No.
This is such a hard question because a lot of the times that drum and bass ends up in the charts, it's what we would call a happy accident. And sort of historically, a lot of people had chart success with drum and bass, but they hadn't meant to have chart success. So I think it's quite hard to define what is commercial, because someone who's into deep neurofunk might call anything with a riff a commercial tune. My definition of it is probably something that someone has produced specifically with a viewpoint of that being played in a pop sort of environment. I don't feel we ever made music like that, bizarrely. A lot of people might disagree if they're into deeper drum and bass, and then underground is if you're making something that you just don't give a shit where it ends up, and you make it for completely selfish reasons.
For the pure love of it.
Exactly. Yeah. But that could also apply to commercial. It just depends on what you're into. So it's a long, difficult question to answer that one, but that's what I've got to say about it.
How about you, Brendan?
For me, the word underground means select people creating cool ideas, creating new ideas, and I would say commercial to me means them ideas becoming available to the masses and the masses buying into it.
Yep.
And that's what I think.
Darren?
I don't know, I think I probably agree with Paul on this one. Just kind of, it is that this, I don't know, it's just kind of what reasons you're making things for, I suppose, really, more than anything. For me, kind of like if you're going out there with a view to getting into mass appeal and into the charts, then you're kind of edging into that world, I suppose. And underground is, like I say, just doing things for just because you don't. It's unfair to say. For the fuck it. It is a really difficult question to answer. I was mulling that over for a while, and I still can't work it out. I don't know. I think maybe I kind of flit around in the underground. I think that's maybe what I do.
Markey, have you got a microphone? You have, cool.
Serious, I need to answer this question. You got plenty good answers. Okay.
Oh, you can't shy away from that. You
That's
can't.
so
Don't
cheap.
cop out.
Come on, man, you can't cop out. You got to answer this.
I don't know, because I don't really think about commercial or underground. I think when I'm in the studio, I just want to have fun, and if the tune became commercial, great.
Yeah.
If it's not, it's great as well. I think when me and XRS made the LK, because that's the only track we, came on the charts. Luckily, after 12 years, still play and goes off. We just don't make the tune for being commercial. We just try to discover our own sounds, and because at the time we like very obsessed with the sound, the London sound, like Future Forces and Ed Rush and Optical. That when Ed Rush and Optical starts with I called drum and bass funk, not neuro funk, because for me it's more funk than neuro.
Yeah.
Neuro for me is just crazy people.
Well, I saw you play last night.
You
You
know,
played one or two.
and because we came from like a different country and came from a hot country, everybody's just like saying, "No, you don't need to copy anyone," and we just tried to discover our own sounds.
Yeah.
And we just made a tune, and the tune became successful, and it became a pop tune.
LK
and it came
caught a
on the
moment.
charts.
It caught a moment, and it goes back to what you were saying with Happy Accidents, really. But I mean, when you said about Neuro, I mean, I heard you drop a Neuro tune or Neuro-ish tune last night, amongst everything else. And we are in this wonderfully wide, we've got this huge menu of beats to pick from as DJs. And I mean, you've got from one extreme, you've got Sigma and Take That. To another, you've got kind of real complex.
I don't know.
technical
I
stuff.
think, in my point of view, it's not because Sigma made the tune. If Take That is very commercial, it's just they try to do something different. And if that's my point of view. The thing is, if some people call commercial, I like the remix. I think the remix is much better than the original. So it's all about, in my point of view, it's all about taste of music.
Have you
I
played
think
the
it should be
remix?
noted, though, a lot of guys, including myself and Matrix, we fell into that lane. But, it was an accident. What Paul was saying, it was kind of, we didn't set out to make that and to do that. We set out to make proper, drum and bass that would cut it, that we liked. And basically,
So
all
that
of a
was with
sudden,
all,
we were
was
in the
that
top 40.
All I
and it was like-
Know, yeah? That was with so the first track that ended up in the charts was A Happy Accident, and
Absolutely, man. I'll tell you the story about it. It was All I Know. And we got given this vocal and really liked the vocal. There was something cool about it. And we made the first edit of the tune that we made. We thought, it's actually quite like this. I don't know if we can play this out in the sets. Let's, blank canvas, let's go again. And let's make it a bit more banging. Something that we can start the set with and get, people moving. And we thought, yeah, that's the main mix. And then we thought, okay, well, we haven't got another track to go with it. We need to release something now. Let's go back to that initial idea and finish it. And then all of a sudden, that initial idea that was going to get shelved was in the top 40. And we were like, Jesus, how the hell did we get here? You know what I mean?
That's the right way to do it.
yeah. And
I
that's
think-
the way that a lot of the drum and bass hits of, chart hits have all happened.
Well, I'm glad that we touched on Sigma and Take That within 4 minutes of starting because we can get that out of the way.
I'm using it as an example.
Yeah, no, it's a good example because they knew it was strategic. You don't grow up a drum and bass DJ wanting to work with Gary Barlow.
No.
Of course, he's not on your list of pinnacle achievements of who can I collaborate with. It's a calculated measure. That's a commercial. You've aimed it at those people. You have no qualms about. I don't want to say selling out, but you've got no qualms about going there. I can't go there. I don't think we ever did quite get to that level of ridiculousness, but. The way that they've made a tune, that's from the heart. That's making drum and bass. Suddenly it's in the charts. You didn't plan on it being like that, and I think that's a much more, that's a real way of producing this music.
Yeah.
I think what's got to be noted as well, Dave, is that when you have that Happy Accident success, all of a sudden the floodgates open.
I was going to say,
And because
is that
you're-
what led to Magnetic Eyes then? That
Yeah, and it's like
floodgates?
all of a sudden we had all these top line offers coming in, and we're like, wow, this wasn't like this before, 6 months ago. And it's like, okay, well, this is a new challenge. I've made DJ records all my life, and I will continue to do that because that's what I get a buzz off. But there was no intention to go down a certain lane to be like commercial and work with Gary Barlow or any of that, Making cool
I'm proud
music.
of you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I've got you too. But I'd say, all of these doors were open and stuff, and chances to work with vocalists that we'd never worked with before and get in studios and learn how to write songs in a different way. So that's what we did, man.
Yeah, there was an opportunity, you went with that.
And I'm sure the same has happened to Wilkinson, Subfocus, all these people. Sigma have obviously moved into a different bracket now where so many doors have opened, and they've had, when you have continual number ones, there's a pressure there then to continue that.
Those are one-way doors.
They're one-way doors, yeah. And they're kind of financial doors that will set you up for life.
Well,
and if that's the road you want to go down, that's all good, man.
Did you worry about those one-way doors the further you were going into making vocal tracks yourselves? When you were riding that wave, you know, Once All I Know and then Magnetic Eyes, were you worried about those, no way through doors yourselves?
Really worried because, and still to this day, when we DJ out, we want to bang it. Making underground music is as important as doing them records, you know? That's where, as I said before, the cool ideas come from. Your own skills will develop by making them records, not.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the questions now, and I mean, I was going to use the example of Sigma and Take That, and then kind of, really technical kind of neurofunk, and that's the kind of spread that we've got. I mean, do those two worlds work together? I'm going to ask you guys first. Can the commercial side, the more commercial side, and the more underground, not giving a fuck side, where people aren't making it for charts or anything, can these two worlds exist together? I'm looking at you, Dan, so I'm going to go for you.
I think they clearly do, but whether they have to is another question. I don't, from my standpoint, and I don't feel a great connection with any of that. When I look at the charts and I see sort of these D&B tracks, for me, I don't have a connection with it. It doesn't. For me, the only connection there is tempo more than anything. And I'm not sure why that is. And maybe I might be slightly snobbish about it in some respects, or just my upbringing in terms of my, the music I'm surrounded by and what I listen to. So I think there's this whole. Sometimes there's this idea that we have to be connected, where I don't think that's really that important. And because I know the underground, as much as we say, it's almost like I feel like talking for the underground, but as much as people from that side of the scene sort of turn their nose up at it, I don't think they ultimately care. They can be bitchy, but I don't think they really care. But I sometimes get the impression that people who are in that commercial world worry about what the underground's thinking when they shouldn't. If that's what you want to do, go for it, do for it, and just own it as well, and just be and do whatever it takes. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I've worked with, like I say, Fresh, for example. You know what I mean? Seeing what he's done, and he's like, you can't debate his kind of credentials on the underground. Obviously he's put out a couple stinkers, but it's like, but he's out there forging the path for quote unquote commercial as well. But just he's never really been that concerned about what the underground thinks. He's just doing it for his own reason. But I don't know. Like I say, I do sometimes feel that some people are overly concerned about what other people think.
Yeah. I think, I'll ask you, Marky, which side needs which the most? Because drum and bass is founded with authenticity. I think more than other genres, there's that kind of roots thing, that heritage thing. So do you think commercial drum and bass artists need underground more? Because it seems that a lot of people who make underground drum and bass they just see it and they think, cool, get on with it, we're doing our own thing. Do you think the commercial artists need that kind of credentials, if you like, that history?
A little bit. I think some people like Dr. Mika is doing like some good commercial tracks. I really like it. I think it's a very decent. But what I do believe is the fact like when the tune is good, the tune became a commercial instantly. I think the big example at the moment is Brixton Road. All right, I think Subfocus and Wilkinson, they all like great artists and be in the charts, but the thing is, everybody plays Brixton Road. Nearly every single DJ plays Brixton Road. You don't, I play.
Are you talking about the vocal mix of this tune that's just appeared?
Well, yeah, I played. I played with no shame, and I love it.
This is the beautiful thing about the difference between us.
It's really good. I think it's no problem at all. I think it helps, especially because, for example, I can see as a big picture, I play in the different countries, and I think it's good. It helps. It helps drum and bass. But it's the same. You can play like the instrumental and the vocal, and it's massive. It's it's big tune.
Yeah.
It's funny you say about Brickstone Road, because I had a long old chat with Hazard last week. He called me about it. It was actually one of his first vocal records that he'd ever worked on.
Yeah.
And he was like, "What do you think about it, Brendan?" I was like, "Well, what do you think about it?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's great. It's kind of opening me up to like various places that I never had before."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, that's a great thing, then, isn't it?"
It taught him, he told me in an interview that it taught him about scales and keys.
Yeah.
And so he's going to write more vocal tunes that he's always wanted to write. It's given him an opportunity to learn about that side of musicality. Let's talk about gateways, because that's what everybody talks about. And I've always seen it this way, following and writing about music for 20 years, is that you do have that kind of entry point for a younger audience who find that, they hear that 172 BPM, and they think, right, okay, well, if this is drum and bass, and then they start digging into things. And do you believe in gateways and the role of a commercial artist within that? Paul?
Absolutely. I am of the generation where Aphrodite was my gateway to drum and bass. I remember being at a party and hearing people mix Urban Takeover records, and they were just fun and easy to digest. And then you hear the name drum and bass, and you go, okay, what is that? And this is obviously pre-Google, so you'd say, where's the drum and bass club? Where's the drum and bass records? And you'd go and look for it and search it out. And a lot of people told us that Pendulum was their gateway into drum and bass. And they would hear something on the radio and go, that's drum and bass. I don't think that happens for everyone, but I think that's a very important way for anyone to get inspired by a genre. And they'll work their way through it if they find it. And like myself, when I found out Aphrodite, my mind was blown that all this music existed that I had no concept of. I was living in Western Australia, and it's like the most isolated place on earth, and suddenly there's this whole world of music I didn't know existed, and I wanted to know everything about it and where it came from and who was responsible for it. So gateways, especially commercial gateway music in this genre, is exceedingly important, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, perhaps your records might have been a gateway. It might be too soon to say, but have you had anybody approach you and say, I've discovered other drum and bass through stuff like Magnetic Eyes, or is it too soon to say?
Yeah, I mean, mainly, obviously, we had Control. That was in like the top 10 for 3 weeks.
I still play that, by the way.
Oh, really?
I love that song. It's one of my favourite songs ever.
Oh, good, man. I'll give you a brown pay packet at the end. But yeah, I mean, just like talking about gateways, I've had lots of people saying to me, and not just our records, kind of other people's records as well, and saying, I think we'll all admit that over the years, people either love drum and bass or they hate drum and bass, right? And they just, for whatever reason, whether the tempo was too fast for them, or it was too brash, they couldn't get their heads around it, But as soon as you start bringing vocals into, and it can be any sort of vocal, really cool underground, really cool, something that's crossed over, it just opens people's minds differently, and they hear it differently, you know what I mean? And if that's going to be the entry point and they want to explore further, then that's a great thing for me. And people going on about Stigma, and anyone who wants to cuss it, or anyone who's making that sort of music, as Darren said, that's their choice and stuff, do you know what I mean? And no one in the underground, it doesn't affect the underground in any way. What it does is it brings, if anything, it'll make other people explore. If they found Stigma, then they could explore further, and then eventually get to other places.
Do you agree, Darren?
Yeah, I suppose so. I kind of like... There are all these gateway tunes. There's kind of an example for me has always been my younger sister, and she always used to hit me up and like, can you get me guest list for Pendulum? Blah, blah, blah. Can you get... And I was like, okay. Okay. And then as the years go on, she's kind of like, oh, can you get me guest list for Perez or Caliber or whatever? So you can kind of see that there are these transitions, these ways in. With the sort of the commercial side of things, I would like to think so. I would love to think so. I sometimes wonder if that will be the case. But maybe I'm just, I don't know, optimistically I'd like to think so, but I suppose from a personal point of view, because I personally see such a gap between myself and, for example, Stigma, I can't immediately see it. But maybe that's just because I'm too old,
Yeah. But there are, I mean, Marky, I mean, I know that, you know, because we've all got our own gateways, you know, we've all come in through different things at different eras. I mean, a gateway's still a thing now, because we're all at least in, you know, our 30s. So we're talking, you know, and that's when gateways worked, you know, we weren't online. We didn't have access to that information straight away, so things would trickle through. So gateways, do you wonder if gateways still work in the same way that they did when we all got into records in the 80s?
Can you speak a little bit slowly, please? Because I'm a tourist.
Are gateways still relevant?
Sorry.
Sorry.
I see things like more on the DJ wise than commercial side, because the DJ thing, the DJ is my thing. Playing records is my thing, and what I like is bring new people. Is just try to teach new people to like the music that I believe. I think sometimes I had to I feel pressure in my country to play a little bit commercial, but in the end of the day, I can teach them, you know, from the commercial to you know, take people to a journey to see what I really, really like and actually what drum and bass means to me. So
Join the dots.
yeah, so that's why nowadays, you know, the biggest DJ in my country, drum and bass, is Caliber.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but yeah, I really agree with everything like Darren said, because I feel the same.
Well, you were
I
kind of
feel
like
the same.
You were a gateway for Bad Company
Yeah.
and drum and bass to Brazil.
Yeah,
You know, when you came over and the kind of noise that you created when you came to England, and we were like, right, we got to have this guy playing our music, and then going over there and seeing that what you'd created, you know, it's like, wow. So it's kind of like that's there, you know. Yeah, so hopefully there's all these other spots around the world. I suppose it was weird because there was because the internet wasn't so prevalent. There wasn't that connection to see what was going on, but now we can, you know.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more visible. So, I mean, it struck me when I was thinking about this topic that drum and bass records that are made for the charts now aren't made for moany old junglists like myself. And I'm wondering now, especially with you two, because you've both had 4 top 40 hits, when you're making those records, especially when you get to stuff like Closer, when you're quite deep into that journey, and you know, when you were going towards kind of like Granite and things like that, I mean, did you change your view of the people that you were making it for? Did you think, right, we're making this for a different audience, a different demographic?
I was making it for us. There was no thought process outside of we're making an album of sketches and demos that we've made for us. Half the tunes that Pendulum had all of them that were commercially successful, lyrically were so far removed from anything that you would experience in the charts. We did a tune called Propane Nightmares, which was about a mass cult suicide. Are you serious? And it was on Radio 1 in the daytime. And we filmed a video clip in like a kindergarten, and I'm getting my head held onto by the preacher, and then he throws me away and I die. Are you crazy? That's a chart hit. So, and also like Tarantula, which was probably our first sort of big bang of a tune. Rest in peace, Tenafly. That was about going to someone's funeral and drinking all of their drinks and kicking dirt on their grave, like, see you later. Right. It's on Radio 1 at lunchtime, you know. We were just bewildered by how this had happened. So I think we are probably the kind of the exception to how you would achieve chart success with drum and bass music, because that couldn't have been further from what we wanted. And I think we just made a choice to stop making music for DJs and make more songs that were relevant to our interests outside of drum and bass, but with that sort of mould. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I'm really qualified to answer those questions.
Cool. How about you, Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to what I said before, kind of like, you know, when the new doors open up for you, it's kind of like new challenges as well, you know. We'd always made these DJ records, and all of a sudden we're working with top-line vocals, and It was a good challenge, you know, and I still want to do more of that. But I also want to do underground music, or if that's what you want to call it, whatever. I still want to make them records to play out that will bang it in the set, or just roll it in a set, you know, and that's equally as important.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, what are those challenges then? Now you've established yourself with a repertoire of commercial stuff, and you still want to make those club records. What are the new challenges that you face in order to be able to stand in both worlds, if you like, have a foot in both worlds? Because, I mean,
it's
Chase
quite
and
hard.
Status are a very good example of, you know, they can make a big pop hit, they can also make a gully banger. Drum Sound and Bassline Smith as well. So, I mean, what challenges do you guys and those guys kind of face then when you're trying to tread that line?
Yeah, it's hard to keep, like, both feet in each different pond, you know what I mean, and kind of get this balance right, because, you know, you've got agents and people like that and labels who are investing into you and they want to make more money. You know what I mean? Essentially, they want to make more money. And all of a sudden, you are making more money than you ever did before. So they want to keep that going, but you still want to keep your toe in this other pond, you know what I mean? So it is a hard balance to get right and stuff. But we're doing it. We've made a conscious decision. That's what we're going to do. And we just released one back in May, which is called Scatterbrain.
Yep.
We did, you know, a banger last year with Sounds from Desire. So we're doing them records. We've made that decision, and we're going to make it work.
Cool.
In some capacity.
Let's talk about the term selling out, as I think we touched on it. Nobody really likes the term selling out. A Nets guy once said to me in an interview that selling out to him was not trying new things and just carrying on pandering or catering to the crowd that liked your original stuff. That selling out, you know, instead of, you know, he flipped the idea that most people see selling out. And so going on and trying these new things, trying songwriting, arranging and poppier stuff, to him was developing as an artist, and to stay as someone making liquid rollers was selling out because he wasn't kind of developing. So I'd not thought the term selling out in that way before. I mean, what way do you all see the term selling out, Darren?
I don't know. I don't. It's like you say. It's quite a strange term. Is this whole idea of? I suppose it goes back to that doing things for the wrong reasons more than anything. It's the whole sort of commercial side of things scares me personally. Kind of like, obviously, it's like I'd love to have like a sort of commercial success of a tune, but I'd want to do it on my terms, I feel, in some ways. And because I don't know enough about that world in some respects, I kind of feel that it feels like there's a lot of people involved in the process that I don't feel comfortable dealing with.
So like top line writers and lyricists and
yeah,
stuff like that?
For me, it's almost, when you start sort of looking at the credits on the tune and you're like, really, that many people are involved in that? I don't know, I can't get my head around that. So
it seems like it's like the antithesis of why you would start writing tunes, because you're on your own making sounds out of a computer, and that's the whole thing that drives a lot of people to produce, you know, in that DIY kind of aspect. That's
the thing. I can understand the need to kind of want to move, you know, try new things and move forward, and you know, you want to move on and expand and whatever. But I can only sort of justify my reasonings from what I've grown up listening to and the bands that I've been into, and kind of like these bands that are kind of feel like they were bands and they wrote their music, and these artists wrote music, and then it seems like it's a very, almost in the last, I don't know, maybe, I suppose it has been around from Motown and other people outside writers writing tunes, but it just feels weird from a drum and bass point of view to kind of hear that going on, because there's this side of things of like, I've seen Brown Paper Bag has managed to kind of get into the charts without the need for all these other people. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's just this weird, for me personally, this weird, uncomfortable world that I'm not quite sure about, and I'm kind of sort of stepping into it somewhat, really going back into working with BEC. Do you know what I mean? And kind of like, but we've, you know, working with Dan again, who's had this experience of this whole world, And it's cool, and I am as well, like learning these new things from this guy who's had a clear experience of working with people who've had chart hits. And there's this sometimes this battle of kind of like, but I can at the same time I'm like, yeah, I can see where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But it's selling out. I don't like to kind of use. Personally, I don't really like to use that term. I don't think it's not helpful. Do you know what I mean? It's like. It's just like I said before. Just if you're going to do your thing, just own it more than anything.
So, I mean, how have you found that then, working with top-line writers and lyricists and stuff like that? I mean, that must be quite difficult, because before it was you and JB making your tracks, you know, against the world, like, you know, in your studio, like all producers. Then to suddenly have these new people coming in, what's that like? Yeah,
I mean, you know, it is kind of weird and stuff when you've been so used to the two of you or whatever, just, you know, or on your own working and determining how you're going to make something. But, you know, I think it's evident that, you know, it's a growth of our scene once again, that we're now doing these sort of operations and stuff. I mean, to be honest, I've got to say that myself and Jamie, there's a limit to the way we do stuff, because when there is too many cooks in the kitchen, it can get messy and stuff. Do you know what I mean? We make a track for us what we like, and then we source it to vocalists.
Right, okay, so you haven't actually you haven't got top-line
Oh, no,
writers
we have had experience and all that, but that's not what we prefer. We prefer making music first.
Yeah.
And then getting in with them.
Have you ever had to fight back when you've had, like, you know, kind of, you know, any kind of label intervention where they really, you know, they think they can turn it into more of a popular hit?
Absolutely.
And you've had to kick back and tell them, no, you know?
Yeah, it's, you know, we're definitely digging our heels in, you know, and what we want to do in this, you know, and the way we want to play it. You know, this is our career. This is a challenge that we're taking on board, you know what I mean? And so.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think of the term selling out, Marky?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I got some strange point of views, but it's very crazy, because the way, like Darren says, is exactly what I want to say, because I feel the same. But in the end of the day, I talk about Netsky. I don't know. I feel really proud of him as well. You know, trying to do something different. And when he said to me, like, he signed to Sony, and I was like, you know, asking him a few questions about if they're gonna push drum and bass and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, I don't know, but I really want to try something different. So at the end of the day, I just want to see.
But do you think there were these expectations then put on him? Because someone like, I can imagine signing for Sony, they're kind of, there's just numbers involved. There's just
there's a lot of money. Yeah. It's a tricky situation, isn't it? Because I just asking him, like, you know, a few questions, and he's like, well, you know, his expectations is like, of course, positives. So I just hope, you know. So
this is kind of also like, ultimately, who decides what? With that, who decides what gets put out? Because I must say, only imagining he writes a load of tunes, and they're like, no, yes, no. That for me,
that's for me as well. But pretty much, I think that's the way
I
big
actually
labels
don't think
work,
it is that way, actually, Darren. I'll tell you why it's not.
Right.
It's because if you look at someone like the Wilkinson camp, for example, this guy he's had a number of top 40 hits and whatever, and he's also had tracks that's been on the daytime playlist, haven't gone all the way. But his team, I think it's a case of if he believes in it and his management believe in it, they go with it. He's built up his following on the live side, you know. So it's kind of, the perception is he's out there, he's got music out there. It's still at a great quality.
But as a scene, it's like, why? I suppose there's no real different from a crew. It's just like the idea of a team behind this one artist, and that kind of, you know, we say when managers and things are that involved, and they're kind of putting to these ideas of like, I just don't know did Sigma and Take That? Whose idea was that?
Well, that's an easy one. But that's an extreme example, though. I mean, often if you sign to a major label, and say if you're a solo artist or a duo or a small group, that frees up a lot of your headspace to concentrate on the music rather than worrying
Yeah.
about everything else.
I suppose they can give you the option of all these, like we've got this catalogue of artists that you can work with.
That's the fantastic thing. Like 100 years ago, there was a drum and bass label, Defunct.
Yeah.
They would record female vocalists without tracks and then give you a folder
Yeah.
and say, these are all the vocals we've got, work with them. It's exactly the same as with a major label. You say, you know what, I wouldn't mind working with Keith Flint from The Prodigy. How crazy would that be? And they could make that happen, whereas you might not have the ability to do that.
It's like going back to the Netsky thing and stuff, and he's signed to Sony, right? You know, we're talking about a guy who's a massive name in Belgium. I'm not sure, he's like one of the biggest names as an artist, not a drum and bass artist.
Yeah.
He's
you know,
the
he's
number
huge.
one. Huge.
I mean, is there any drum and bass label out there that can kind of control that and kind of maintain this, like supporting this artist? They can get it going.
I think you just said it. You said control that, though. If you've got a major label, we're in a different world now with records. They don't try to control you. They haven't signed Netsky because they want him to make funk or to, make a pop tune. They've signed him on the back of what he's already done. Of course, yeah. And a drum and bass label might be a little more inclined to make him want to keep doing what he's already done, which is what leads to, you said, selling out by maintaining, because if they're a drum and bass label, they put out drum and bass music. If they're Sony, they put out drum and bass music, but if he wants to make some breaks or a house tune and put it on his album, they're not going to try and change his mind about that as much as... I mean, we had offers from labels before we signed to Warner's, and they just wanted us to keep doing Voodoo People remix for an album. Yeah. We spoke to Warner and they said, do what the hell you want. We gave it to them. Obviously, there was a bit of to and fro and a bit of change on what they wanted.
But do you not think that you were still in the early stages of the commercialisation, so to speak, or the success of DMB? So you were in some ways an unknown quantity. So it was kind of like you were very popular, very popular on the underground, and the underground was getting bigger, so to speak. So you were afforded that freedom.
Exactly, yeah, and we wouldn't have been afforded that freedom had we have stayed within drum and bass labels, because none of them were interested in us doing anything different than what we'd already done, and that was the problem. And so I felt if we had have stayed within drum and bass and signed to RAM or whoever, that would have been not selling out, it would have been selling ourselves short, because then we would have been concerned about making Andy C's dub plate for next weekend rather than making the Pendulum album we wanted to make. And there's a huge mental headspace you've got to get past when you sign a major label. And in our career, they've been the most encouraging of doing different stuff. Whereas every label we ever released on before major labels was the polar opposite of that. And they would be like, oh, geez, I shouldn't impersonate Andy C. Be like, I can't double drop that with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It's got too many words in it. And we'd be like, God damn, selling ourselves short if we had kept doing that. So.
When artists get as big as what you guys got, or Netsky's got with a global fan base, okay, Netsky's huge in Belgium, but he's got a global fan base as well. It's a big operation to look after them, or acts, as well as 10 others on a drum and bass label. Do you know what I mean?
He can't do that on his own.
And, whether people like it or not, majors have got between 20 and 50 people focusing on them sort of acts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every question I ever had for an independent label that the answer was no, the major said yes. We can do that. Not a DJ who owns a label who feels that your output might inhibit their career somewhat because it's restricting how popular they can get. The majors didn't care about that. So that's way different from the question you asked.
No, and it's great. It's great to
though.
just let that kind of unravel. And I mean, I think it's an exciting story to hear, or a unique story of what happened to you guys. I mean, and like you said, it was very, very early stages of this kind of phase of commercial drum and bass that I don't think that could happen anymore. And there seems to be a lot more control from the majors. It sounded like you were given an incredible amount of creative freedom, and I wonder if majors still provide that now, and there's still, maybe I'm living up to a cliche of like an underground moany old junglist, but I always see a major just wanting to make the money and not providing, they're only providing creative freedom in order to make that money, and if that creative freedom doesn't actually get a return, you're gone, and that's when careers, you know, can suddenly go sour, really.
I'd just like to say as well, actually, the first 2 records that we did, All I Know, Magnetic Guys, that went all the way, that was through the infrastructure of Viper Recordings. We did that ourselves, you know. That was our team that took that there, you know, which is a great thing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, to maintain that momentum, you know, you might need a bit of outside support to keep that going and to build on that.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's the difference between a major release commercial drum and bass record and an independent one. And I was wondering about, you know, there's people like Fresh, people like Chase and Status, and Sigma as well. Sigma's made some absolute bangers back in the day. You know, it was a point that Goldie made on the Channel 4 News, I think it was last year, where he bigged up Fresh, but slagged off Rudimental because Rudimental hadn't worked their way up the ladder. They didn't have the stripes. They didn't have the authenticity to just go and make a drum and bass track. And, you know, Goldie's talking about heritage there. And, you know, I mentioned about the kind of the need for heritage or drum and bass's fascination with it. Was that a correct point to make or not? You know, should we judge people differently on whether, you know, if Rudimental had made a track like Signal, would people be more accepted? Would the drum and bass, the underground loving drum and bass community be more accepting of a Rudimental type act if they'd also made bangers like Signal? Marky, I'm looking at you and I haven't asked you anything yet for a while.
Just listen. Just listen.
I think, yeah, Goldie, you know, Goldie's, he's got a point in some respects. It's like, I think when an act, for me, when I first saw Rudimental come along, for me it was like, okay, this is an indication of how big our scene has got now. That drum and bass can be considered a kind of almost like a career choice for a pop act, shall we say, for want of a better word. Like, we're going to choose to make drum and bass as you know, this band has been signed by this label, and then it's almost like you see, what you then see is what I've noticed in the sense is with the way they connect with the underground is to get sort of remixes done that will get their songs connected with the underground. So that again is quite strange. I don't know. Yeah.
I think the reason why they do that, Darren, is because they want to reach out to more specialist shows at radio as well. So if they want to get Friction supporting,
yeah,
they need a D&B mix that's going to be tailor-made for his show. You know
well, I understand it, and that's where I was starting to see that transition of where suddenly people who, let's say I'd get tunes on suddenly, or even like Ed and Friction get bypassed for Annie Mac and Mr. Jam and people like that, kind of like that whole sort of scenario occurring. So I think it is that thing of, it's an indication of how big the scene has become, or how big the genre is as a whole. Yeah.
Rudimental, I think the fantastic thing about them, they had a commercially successful drum and bass tune that has a trumpet solo.
Yeah.
This has to be the first time that anyone has ever had a trumpet solo of that proportion in the charts for years.
But strangely, because I saw them DJ once, and I was like, it was weirdly, they were kind of like playing all old jungle tunes, though. I was kind of like, so...
They used to be into the jungle scene.
Well,
going out to it, yeah.
Okay, well that'll explain it then. But I was kind of like, but they were playing it too fast, to be fair. But
You're too old.
I am. I think the bands are.
I mean, going back to what we were saying before and stuff in terms of like gateways and stuff. Look, I can't comment on whether it's a good or bad thing, whether Rudimental. For me, in my opinion, I look at the positive side, and I think if that's going to bring some guy who's suddenly turned his nose up at these fast breaks from whoever's record, but now suddenly has a vocal and a trumpet solo, and he's, this is interesting, do you know what I mean? Well then, great man, bring it on.
I see it from Goldie's point of view and that point of view as well, because, you know, Goldie's an ambassador for drum and bass and jungle music, and historically you couldn't be a casual observer in drum and bass and just turn up and go, I'm sick, here's my drum and bass tune, I'm headlining now.
Yeah.
Historically, that wasn't possible. Rudimental have managed to do that, and it's with the tempo choice that they've made through their own doing or their label, I don't know, but that can only really be a positive for the overall sound. As long as people who are promoting that music and are controlling it actually identify it as drum and bass. It's not a pop tune that's next to a pop tune that's next to a pop tune, it's a drum and bass tune. And I think that differentiation has to be made. And if it isn't, then it's
Where
just
I-
another radio song.
I think I'm
Where
gonna
I'll
go
get pissed off with Rudimental is if they never make a drum and bass record again.
Yes. Is there
Do you
more
know
than
what I mean?
Is there more than one?
Oh, they better come with it again now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you want them to. That's the thing.
do, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, or otherwise, then it seems contrived if they've just made the one, and then, you know, if they carry on making them, then it kind of shows that there is an authentic love for drum and bass. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, that brings us, I'm going to ask two more questions because I imagine there's probably questions from the audience and we do have to wrap up. So, and you've just brought me onto it, really. I mean, have we reached a point where just because something, I asked Andy C this yesterday, just because something is at around about 170 BPM, has a breakbeat, has a similar kind of drum arrangement and stuff to drum and bass, but I mean, it does that just make it drum and bass, or is there a line now, and are we just talking about pop music? You know, is there, and we keep coming back to Take That thing, but is that just a pop record? Marky.
Again,
Sorry.
I don't know. Maybe it's drum and bass. Maybe it's pop music. I don't know. I think it's a drum and bass and become a pop music. Become pop.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Well, what I do believe is just, I still believe in the fact, like, the power of the DJs. Like, when the producer give it the tune to the DJ play and blew up. That's why I believe, and that's why, you know, I like it. I think tunes like, you know, Brown Paper Bag is just became bigger without radio and stuff like that. I don't know. That's just my point of view.
Yeah.
I don't like this stuff like, oh, you have to go and give it to the, you know, people from the radio to play the music, and people start thinking, oh, just because playing the radio is good. I don't believe in this. For me, it's all bullshit. That's what I think. You know, that's what I think. So.
170, yeah, it's I think, like, almost say, like, a lot of electronic music, there is this kind of standardization that happens of kind of this becomes boom cat is the generic drum and bass step, so that makes it drum and bass, you know, or house is this 4/4 thing. So it is, yeah, it's, I don't know, it's it is hard, isn't it?
It's the same like techno now, same BPM as house, isn't it?
I just want to say yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably
Take the beats away from Shake Your Body, it's an R&B tune.
Yeah,
Put a reggae beat to it, it's a reggae tune.
yeah, exactly.
It depends on how you wrote it and what is around it, but you can call everything drum and bass if it's at that tempo.
I think what's happening in some respects, that I don't know, maybe it's kind of like the pop side of it is becoming standardized in its own way, where it's almost, it feels like sort of, if you get into the top 10, it kind of fulfills these certain criteria, or it kind of has these certain elements and boxes that have been ticked, and then do other people feel like they need to then do the same or a similar thing? So there's kind of like, there seems to be there's a familiarity between the tracks that have become commercially successful.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's like this kind of sort of slightly incestuous. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bit. So I'd like to see kind of something with a completely, in the confines of 170. If you look at the scene and what it's capable of, can something, I don't know, it'd be nice to see just something as simple, say, as a Calloway tune get into the top 10. He writes full songs. You know, there's real structure to them. Or maybe it would need a radio edit. Do you know what I mean? Because he's got the longest intros. Do you know what I mean? But that kind of that's my only real concern with that scene, where there does seem to be this inwardly looking at each other.
Yeah, and it's not just about songwriting, because great pop music from all the previous decades have been about great songwriting. And when I do a lot of these interviews, I know I've spoken to you about songwriting, I've spoken to Sigma and Fresh, and that's one of the challenges that when you reach that type of level and when you're writing that type of music, is suddenly learning about a whole new world and a whole new set of rules and stuff. And I mean, you write songs as well. The actual
Yeah, I'll
arrangement
give it
and
a go.
lyrics and
Yeah.
singing.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. It's something again, a craft I'm learning, I'm hopefully getting better at it. But I'm just kind of like, my subject matter is very different from commercial, and it's that kind of learning that those songs you were talking about were about. I didn't even realise.
Yeah.
Love,
Yeah,
party,
love, party, Ibiza,
Booty shaking.
friends,
friends, and it's kind of like
trumpet solo.
That's why there's kind of that. There's no, for me, there isn't that connection, because it's kind of like, I don't really care about how, Ibiza and.
Are you not feeling the love, Darren?
No, not really. I'm an old shoegazer. You know what I mean? I'm miserable. So it's like.
I can see that charting well in today's drum and
it has
bass
done.
pop climate.
Musically, it has done over the years. There's been some real miserable number ones. I'm sure there has. But it's almost like try and inject some I don't know, something else. It's kind of, like with the whole hip hop thing, of like in the club. I don't care. Do you know
Where
what I mean?
is the club?
Yeah, where is this club you keep banging on about?
The thing with this drum and bass that's in the charts now, it's formulaic, and it has a formula. And it's no secret that there is people in studios who are writing this music now, or top-lining this music, to a very similar mold to the other stuff that's already achieved that success. And that's where we are currently with people making pop drum and bass. It's like Wilkinson had that success with that song. It went like this, bridge, chorus, breakdown, drop. Let's do that again. And not all of those tunes will get popular, but historically that's not how it's been. But I don't mind that it's like that now, because drum and bass is on the radio, and for me it's a style of music that I've lived with and loved for a long time. So if I hear it on the radio, even if it is formulaic, even if someone's written it aimed at the radio, I'm still happy about it. But that won't last forever. We might get an Aphex Twin 174 BPM,
Be nice.
something weird like that might come. Like we were talking about Body Rock by Shimon and Andy C, and how that charted, and that's the most ridiculous drum and bass tune ever, with no words, and
Yeah.
yet it had a video clip and it charted. So
It's one of the only few instrumentals that have ever charted in drum and bass. And I think, that goes right back to our original point of happy accidents. So, the final question now, really, and it's the question of the panel: how commercial and underground drum and bass can work together. They exist together, they're happening together. To quote Andy yesterday, it's all levels and everybody plays a part and you all do your own thing, and as long as people are happy making the music that they're making, then it doesn't matter what the next guy is doing. But in the future, will they work closer together, or is this the status quo and everybody just carries on making music? Sorry, I should direct that question. I really want to direct it.
yeah,
to
let's make him answer it.
No, I'm going to work this way around, so Paul.
I don't think they have to work together.
Right, yeah.
No one's actually said that, but you posed some examples of some very extreme examples in the questions that you gave us, and one was like a Sigma and Take That, and the other was some calculator drum and bass neurofunk smasher. I find
Calculated drum and bass.
a lot of the time that people who are responsible for the poppier stuff and who have had commercial success are still quite interested in what is going on in the underground. And deep down, even if they're on MTV and they've got their leather jacket on and their shades on, they still care what GQ and Goldie and Groove Rider, you can't lie, you care what those guys think. You care what Darren thinks. And they keep an eye on what's going on in that scene, whereas the guys who are on the other end of that, who are making the underground stuff, it's a bit of they look at them like jokers, and there's a little bit of animosity between the two. So I would love to see everyone hugs and high fives and think it's all great, but it's such a big varied scene, you can't realistically expect everyone to like what each other's doing. But like I said before, all I care about is that drum and bass is here and it's popular and people are into it, because that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, definitely. Amen. Brendan.
I think underground music doesn't need commercial music in any way. Do you know what I mean? As we said before, I just think commercial in terms of records in drum and bass, there'll always be, as long as there's a big record that catches on organically, it can always go commercial. At some point, it can cross over, and you know what I mean, and go the full hit, you know. So yeah, I think that will continue.
Yeah.
And long may it continue as well.
Darren.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I'm not sure whether they do need to kind of worry about each other. I think it's almost like traditionally, in some way, it's almost historically as well as a scene, drum and bass has always had this very staunch, we're underground, this is what we're about. And I remember I think it's like mid-90s or something, when suddenly sort of majors, when they first had sort of an interest in what was going on, and they were signing people, and it was almost like a lot of the time they were signing a lot of the wrong people, or what the kind of who they perceived to be kind of the right people to sign. And then it felt like there was this backlash of kind of like, why have I got to put vocals in just to get in the top 10? Well, clearly you do in some ways. So I think we, as a scene, I like to see, I personally like to see people who have done their apprenticeship, so to speak. There's not enough of that in music in general, kind of like people who have worked their way up and kind of like, you know, and fought their way to this.
I think that's across all genres as well. The acceleration of stars now is just, you know, like your Martin Garrix's.
Yeah,
and
it just
stuff
seems like
that,
now. It just seems like now there's this. It's arguably across music as a whole. There's very easy ways in. It's like, let's just get a tune that was already big, bootleg it, and then you give away that bootleg to try and sell my actual record. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like this. So it's old in the sense of I like seeing people putting in the graft, and then if you can get, you know, you get more power to you, mate. If you know what I mean, if you get in the top 10, good on you. Do you know what I mean? So, and I'm happy for you, but like I always say, just own it and don't be ashamed, and just, you know.
Yeah, I think we need the pop music, we need the pop songs, needs the underground as well. So yeah.
The
Not
two
so
exist.
much. For me,
yeah.
it's all good, you know. It's just can work together sometimes.
Cool, right. That's the end of my questions. I think we've got enough time for one or two questions from the audience. So has anybody got anything to ask?
Uh-oh, not him.
Some hands.
Hello.
We have to say who this is first. It's Chris Goss from Hospital Records.
There was like, I just wanted like two things. One thing, like there was quite a lot of talk about Netsky, and so just for what it's worth, as someone that was very deeply involved in that whole process was driven by the artist. Boris wanted to do other things, and you know, he was in a situation where he said, "Look, I want to broaden out as an artist and a writer." I get it. We personally, you know, we looked at opportunities about how to offer him a different situation to enable that. But had he stayed on hospital, I think we would have made a different kind of record. But I appreciate what Marky says. Marky says, I'm proud of Netsky. I'm proud of Netsky. I think drum and bass should be proud of Netsky in the same way they should be proud of all of the people on the stage. But I have a question for Paul, because Paul, you said, no, but like, you said, if I'm right, when you were, as an act, when Pendulum were perhaps looking for a deal and being made offers, and you looked around you, and at that point, there wasn't a drum and bass label that could offer you what you wanted, or there wasn't a drum and bass label that could offer you what a major could offer you.
Yeah.
Would you say that's still the case now?
Absolutely not. If it was now, I'd just do it myself. I wouldn't sign to a label. I'd use the money that we've got from touring and invest it in our own and start our own, rather than rely on someone else to do it for us.
And to be fair, isn't it also, but it's also fair to say that given the huge profile that Pendulum has now, that's the kind of position that you could take in the same way that perhaps Radiohead could give away an album for free or could self-release. Whereas, you know, if we think about the artists that a lot of us work with, they're not at that stage that Pendulum are.
No, but you guys are the anomaly in drum and bass. You're the ones who have never done anything bad by any of their artists, and they've all stuck around for so long. Whereas nearly every label we ever worked for tried to rinse us in some way or another. So
Yeah,
our
no,
experience of
yeah.
working with underground labels was definitely a lot different to your artists, and I have to tip my hat to you for that. Maybe if we were making Liquid, we would have signed a hospital 10 years ago.
There's still time, mate. There's still time. We could do it.
Been the twilight career that I have in my 40s.
I think now more than ever that sort of what you're talking about, doing it yourself, is able to be done. I think if you look at, because in some ways when I look at underground, I don't even think of DnB anymore. Kind of like it's almost just like things like grime and what those guys are doing, like Stormzy and the BBK and that whole kind of self-funded, there's I don't for as far as I know, I don't really see majors involved in what they're doing as such. They're kind of doing it all themselves, and they're doing some crazy numbers, and numbers that any major would be very sort of wish they had, kind of like. It's so. I think it's now. Yeah, now's a good chance to be able to do that, and that's why with Exit as well. My thing is encouraging all my artists to start their own label. Like, start a label, do it. Do you know what I mean? And I'll help you in any way I can, because I personally feel that there's not enough of people doing what we're doing, from an Exit point of view, doing that stuff. Whereas, so there was before. So I want to see that kind of self-facilitating thing going on, and I think that needs to happen.
And yet also, don't you think that, because there are so many artists that look up to Exit as a brand and as a style of music, and you also have an opportunity in the same way that Brendan does and that we do to kind of build those communities of like-minded people. And so many of those artists that, without sounding arrogant, they need people like us to support them, to advise them, to talk about their music, to help explain a lot of aspects of the business to them. So I think I totally understand what you explain as an artist, and yet at the same time, you have that brand and that label and that feel, and it's something to be proud of and something that so many people aspire to.
That's why you guys exist. We didn't have that. We were signing records to labels that were owned by DJs who wanted the income from those records in their record box and in their pocket. Whereas you guys are sort of facilitating new artists and promoting them. That's why you've lasted so long.
I mean, one of the reasons why we started Viper was obviously I'd been in the scene right through the 90s and releasing records with various other labels. And it was a completely different ball game back then, There was no contracts. It was just the masters,
It was money, but you didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. And so as well as always having the ambition to start my own label and champion a sound that I always wanted, I was always into cinematic music, and I wanted to bring this powerful sort of sound to mixed it with drum and bass, you know what I mean? And as well as that, the ambition was always to have artists on board the label, like-minded, and treat them correctly. Do you know what I mean? And give them contracts and make sure that they got statements and stuff,
But I think going back to encouraging labels to set up their own label, I think encouraging artists to set up their own label, I think there is a point then once they've worked with you for a little while and you can see they're starting to kind of branch out into other, slightly, you can see that they want to do their own thing, then you can encourage them. Once you've given them those tools that Chris was talking about, set that foundation and given them that mentality, then they can go up and set up their own stable and bring through their artists, and that's just a really nice family tree of, it's a constant kind of breeding ground, bringing people up, really. So have we got time for another question from the audience? Yep, cool, another question. Yep, over there.
In about a decade, do you reckon that there's going to be no specific subgenres within drum and bass, and it's actually just going to go back to being called drum and bass? Or do you reckon there's still going to be the commercial and still going to be the underground?
Who are you asking?
All of you.
I think there's going to be more.
Yeah.
Every time I come to Eastern Europe, there's some different
Really?
name attached to a style of drum and bass that's wanting to identify as different to the rest.
Is that a good thing?
I think it's a bit weird, and I think it makes me feel old because I still listen. I still call it liquid funk, for God's sake. It was an album that Fabio put out 16 years ago, and I'm still calling Calibre Tunes liquid funk. But then if I hear some new sort of Gabba-esque D&B that has a name, I think I didn't know about that. I'm not sure if it's good or not, but I think everyone wants at some point to have a place where they belong, and a place that's easily identifiable and something that's identifiable as different from everything else.
Yeah, I think we need to throw a few curveballs out there and stop being so segregated. I think we need to work together more. You know, we used to do that, and we should be doing that again now, you know.
I can't hear a whole set of neurofunk. I know they still call it neurofunk. Ed Rush and Optical probably never called it neurofunk, but I want to hear the whole spectrum of drum and bass when I listen to it.
Exactly, I'm the same, man. You know, I'd love to be on the same bill as Darren, Marky, you, Andy, whoever, you know. I think that's the way we used to operate, and we can still do that.
Yeah, exactly. I think there will always be these sort of subgenres and things going on, and they are important because it's like I say, like people want to feel some kind of connected, their own little scene that they're a part of, and they're helping, pushing, like with the whole sort of halftime thing going on, or whether it's whatever you want to call that. It's kind of, I like the fact that that's been encompassed within the kind of genre of D&B. So all of that, I think all of that's important. But now I think in some ways what's good is that there is this opportunity to kind of go to that top 10 level if you want to with it, whether you can with neurofunk or whatever I don't know, but it's nice in some ways that there is that as a scene that was supposed to have died so many times that it's now look we're having to have this discussion about the size of it really and how far apart we actually are. I think that's it's a good thing.
Do you think it's going to last? Because we've all seen the up and downs.
I think it's going to last. Well, yeah, everything's in cycles. I'm sure people will move on, and I'm waiting for the kind of sort of punky garage guitar janglers to make a comeback, and do you know what I mean? It'd be all about that again. So kind of like we can go away, or the electronic music can go away and have a real think about what it's doing, and then maybe come back and throw another, throw these curveballs. But it's, as long as people are making music, then I'm sure it will. It's like if you look at a lot of genres, house, techno, hip hop, and how long they've been about, we're now a part of that story. So and as long as there's younger people getting involved and wanting to make it, and it's like you look at, say, like this festival tonight, how many people are going to be there? And this is like, what, how many days of drum and bass? It's like, it's not going anywhere for a while.
Drum and bass has been around 25 years now.
Yeah.
The second longest to house in electronic dance music, do you know what I mean? It's
Exactly.
like, it's not going anywhere. There's too many foundations for it.
Yeah, 100%. But what?
As Darren's just
sorry.
said, look at this festival that we're playing this weekend. Incredible. Right in the heart of Europe. Chris Goss and Hospital are putting a massive one on in London in September. 100%. You go to Australia, some of the biggest nights.
100%. Sorry, I should have said that properly. I meant, do you reckon commercial drum and bass is going to last?
Oh.
I'll let you
Yes.
ask that. He's the king of
It's
commercial.
just-
I don't know why everyone thinks I'm the king of it. The songs we made that were commercial were so ridiculous. They had no place to be played on the radio.
I think that's almost more a question of how the kind of music industry as a whole is going to change in sort of 10 years' time. Because like I said, like the example of all these groups coming along who don't need the sort of infrastructure of a commercial label, shall we say, a major label, are getting sort of broad success. So, who knows how we're going to be consuming music? I think that's probably how our consumption of music is going to change in the next 10 years. It's probably going to dictate a lot of it. It's
going to last.
Yeah.
If you look at historically, like the periods of time where the media was saying drum and bass was at its most uncoolness, and it was dead, and it wasn't, and you'd look in DJ Mag or Mix Mag, and there'd be like 2 tunes that got reviewed. Those years coincide with some of the most incredible music that came out in the genre's history. So regardless of whether the press is saying one thing or pop writers are sitting in a studio in King's Cross pitching the next Wilkinson single, I think it's such a varied thing that even if it is commercial or not, there's no way that that music's going anywhere, and it's got a long history. And I think we, as a collective of people who are interested in this, need to move past the point of trying to justify it and trying to say, oh, but it can stand up alongside house music. I'm over that. That's 10 years ago for me. It's as valid as any form of music, and I'm really not interested in trying to convince anyone about that, because it just is.
Yeah, amen. Have we run out of time? Yeah, we've run out of time, and that's a really good point to kind of close up on. So I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank all of the panelists. Pick them up. Thank you, Marky. Thank you, Debridge. Thank you, Futurebound. Thank you, Al Hornets. And thank you all for coming as well.